This was the week where we found out the concrete details of the Build Back Better plan, the human infrastructure side, which has been pared down to 1.75 trillion when it was 3.5 trillion. It was supposed to be Biden's version of FDR's New Deal or LBJ's Great Society. But instead of Great Society, it's more like, come on, man, at least we still have a society. It does not include things like free community college, paid family leave, or a billionaire tax. And it expands Medicare to only cover seniors' hearing support, but not dental or vision. So somebody better teach them. Oh, yeah. Only at what?
Only up to $800. It doesn't even completely cover it. But
yeah, that's like one ear. I was just going to say, somebody better teach them how to, download podcasts, and they won't be able to see it, but they could listen. The plan does have a short extension of the child tax credit and universal pre-K, which kind of feels self-defeating because, look, if the elderly could hear, see, and chew, maybe they would be healthy enough to take care of their own grandchildren. You see what I mean? Like, I'm a fucking genius, you guys. This was all supposed to convince Sinema and Manchin, who again are like those centrist corporate holdouts. One doesn't want to raise taxes on anybody. One doesn't want to have social programs for anybody. But they haven't even promised to vote on this pared down bill. In fact, Manchin has taken the opportunity of Biden being, I guess, out of the country to grandstand and do press conferences about how he's not really convinced about this bill. And here's what he said to reporters earlier today about whether he will or won't support the bill. And he says, let's wait to see what progressives do.
When the White House released this framework, the idea was that it was all negotiated. Now it seems like you still have other issues with it.
No, the White House knew exactly. The White House knew exactly where I stood. There was a couple of concerns that we had to work through. And to say that you automatically signed off on things, I've been here long enough to know that when you say you signed off on things, you ought to keep your word. And I'm not going to be a liar or make anyone else a liar. So that's why I hadn't, because there was a few things that needed to be more directly worked on, and I had said that, and we've been working on it. What they should do is look at the things we all agree on. My goodness, we're agreeing on child care, we're agreeing on pre-K, we're agreeing on home care, we're agreeing on so many things that are really good. And we're working on climate, very progressive, I think, in a good way, and we'll get something done, I believe. But, to hold the bill hostage is what I was saying. I just waited till the president's plane landed because he'd asked that he would like to have something that everyone saw how important that was, and allow him to go there and not do anything. Because I worked clear through the week, as you know, the weekend, went up to the house and visited with him and all that, and thought we had some pretty good understanding on things, and we'll get this back on track. So let's see what they do. They need to pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. That shows good faith.
So what he's saying there is that the progressives need to get on board with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is what he wanted. And then he'll see whether he supports the very pared down version of the Build Back Better plan. And honestly, again, flexing, not giving any kind of indication. Yeah, we'll get it done. But he said privately, he could wait till next year. He doesn't give a shit.
Doesn't care.
He does not care. And before I get you guys' reactions, I do want to play this clip from the Congressional Progressive Caucus leader, Representative Pramila Jayapal, and remind you all that this was sort of part of the plan, right? To leverage progressive power, voting power, to not vote for the big infrastructure bill, the small infrastructure bill, until they got guarantees on this 3.5 or now $1.75 trillion bill. And they were going to sort of leverage that. All right, let's wait for the Senate to get on board, then we'll vote it. Then it's sort of like a, kind of back and forth. Again, I keep on saying like the fox and the fox and like the chicken and the bag of feed puzzle. Like that's how they're fucking doing it. Turns out, seems like progressives have sort of dropped that leverage altogether. And this is Representative Jayapal saying she's ready to vote for it now.
This week, we will have votes on both the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better Act together, which is what we've called for weeks. So we finally got what we've been saying, and we're glad that people listened to us.
He was saying, trust me on Thursday, though.
But we didn't have the bill. And he did not ask for us to vote on that day. He said, I need votes on both bills. And we have been saying for months, we are not going to vote just on an idea or a promise or a framework. We're going to vote on legislation. The minute we have legislation, we can look at it. Our members can decide whether it is good enough, which we feel very good about. Then we will pass both bills. And I think that is what we've been saying for weeks. I don't understand why anyone's confused about it. Last week, we did not have a vote on the Build Back Better Act. We did not have text. This week, we have text. We're going to have a vote on both bills.
I'm confused by it because I didn't think that was the deal. I thought the deal was not that you have text. Oh, good, we have text. Let's sign off on it. I thought it was, we'll see if we like it, then we'll leverage, then we'll discuss. And not, I'm going to accept whatever the fuck Manchin and Sinema negotiated down, and all the other centrists negotiated down without even promising that they would vote on it. Now you're going to say that we're all going to vote for it? Is it that good? Do you know something we don't? So I'm a little surprised by this. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, does anybody have any power besides Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema? I mean, if they're ultimately going to just do whatever they want, what can they do? I mean, they could not lie like in this interview and act like they've been going along with this the whole time. They can do that. But ultimately, it feels like these two senators are holding everything hostage. Is that just true? Is that just how it is?
Well, what's funny is that, Manchin says that the congressional progressives are holding it hostage. So when they have a floor, that's them holding it hostage. When he has this immovable ceiling, that's him just being a principled, right? Sort of the other person's always. And so, I mean, look, the X factor here is how does this thing play out? And I don't want to get into process here, but what matters politically is like, who are they going to blame? And the way that the media works, broadly speaking, is that the assumption is that the centrist position is the rational one, and that if progressives hold out, they're being radical ideologues. So they're pretty much fucked. And not to make excuses for them, because I don't want to do that, is that historically that's how it works. That if the bill doesn't happen because Manchin refuses to give in and to fund more things progressives view as being deal breakers, then that just goes off into a memory hole and we don't talk about it again. But if the Progressive Caucus refuses to sign off on the stems and seeds version, right? And then the Democrats get their ass handed to them in 2022, then it's all their fault. So there's an asymmetry with how these things are covered, and that asymmetry gives all the power to Manchin, but there is not necessarily any law of nature that says that in the event the bill does fail, all the blame should go to the Progressive Caucus. That is just what's going to happen. So therefore, they have all the power.
Yeah, and it's insane because I'd like to imagine you're wrong, because after, in the beginning of these discussions, which they've been going on for fucking ever, it started with the progressives are being the cantankerous ones. And then, as Steve's saying, we all started to understand that it was just Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin who were not willing to negotiate on shit and who were the ones holding it hostage completely. And they've been hounding them and hounding them and hounding them. And even to the point, and I gotta say, I almost felt in that interview, like the host, and I don't know his name, but he was like, but he told you that last week. Like, he made false promises to you like weeks ago. He's talking about Manchin there. He's telling, Pramila Jayapal, like, you've been lied to before. How do you know? And to me, I think you might be right, Adam, where it's like, progressives know they're kind of fucked either way, and they want to leave a little bit with their heads held high and say, yes, it is good enough. I don't want to look like I got screwed over by Manchin yet again,
And then
so
you have Democratic leadership who has zero interest in actually like using the bully pulpit, really, or holding Manchin, or campaigning West Virginia, campaigning in Arizona. There's no arm twisting. There's nothing. When Pelosi talks about the $2-3 trillion being cut out of the program, she's like, yeah, you got to make compromises. It sounds like she's ordering Thai food. It's sort of, there's no one's other than Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez, and some of the sort of progressives, right? Nobody's really mad about it. It's kind of just this. It's just that's the way it is. Joe and I were buddies, and everything. Nothing seems very high stakes. It sort of seems like it's just a process that they just, you bet on the Chiefs, I bet on the Rams. We'll see what happens.
I think that one thing I've been hearing more and more in the climate discussion and in things like the student debt discussion, I know AOC said this on Instagram recently, which is like, hey, just use executive orders. Like, at this point, especially when it comes to climate, a lot of folks are like, we have only to rely on the executive orders, and we should, because we're not going to get enough passed through Congress. And yeah, same with student debt. And I keep on saying this, man, if Biden abolished, okay, he's looking at 10,000 probably 8, probably like a means tested 4. But if he did $50,000 flat, tell me he wouldn't be reelected by a fucking new and growing young Democratic voting base. My God, the easiest way to ensure his reelection.
There's a ton of stuff Democrats could do that is very popular to win elections, but they only want to win elections within a very finite ideological framework, and that is definitely not in that ideological framework.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Do